Greetings, my fellow freedom sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Friday, September 22nd, 2017. Yes, you hear the train, the bridge, people on the bridge, and all that good stuff. Yeah, just to let you know, I am at CJ's Java Lounge located at 400 Southwest 1st Avenue along the New River Market. Southwest section of the Andrews Avenue Bridge. It's getting a little cloudy out here. It's just going to rain in this Venice of America. And of course, we're still talking about the frictions going on with North Korea. And it's funny because I was watching this thing, video from a gentleman from Australia named Activist, I think for Activist News, talks about the masonry that Kim Jong-un was a Freemason, third-degree Freemason, plus he was educated in Switzerland. Very intriguing, right? Yeah. Doesn't mean you gotta let our guard down. However, all these things connect because I even read books on a few areas as well. You know, David Icke and a few others, like Biggest Secret, saying that Mao Tse-tung was considered a third-degree Freemason too. So they come in all areas, okay, of the world. So I'm not going to go Freemason bashing by any means. You have to always gotta say how authentic these conflicts are. So always observe responsibly. It's my slogan. That's to give you guys some input on that, something to think about. And of course, there were some clashes. There's an incident happened in Georgia with the police shooting. There's one in Oklahoma City. They looks like they shot hurt or injured a deaf man in Oklahoma City. A lot of controversies. What would Dale Carson say? Good book to read called Rest Proof Yourself. I know I repeated in the past, but check it out. Just type in Dale Carson on the police. It's always good to know about your rights. Like what I did yesterday, a couple of days ago on the Rutherford Institute. What the rights are on that too. So it looks like we're getting some music in the background. Alright, check this out. Yep, okay. That's how it goes. But as long as you can hear my voice, that's what counts. But the whole thing is you have to always double check everything and all that good stuff. So yeah, and North Korea is still doing the searches in Mexico City. There are both systems down there, plus the ones in Puerto Rico as well, which is very morose. And people complain in Florida about Florida Power and Light. They spent $3 billion to try to prep up the storm and didn't do a dilly squat. Well, hey, that's why you can't just, all that money don't mean anything. You can spend billions of dollars. It's not guaranteed a confounded thing. It's got to find common sense. That's the name of the game. Always prep up in those areas of natural disasters at the best of your ability, including myself too, so I'm not just preaching to the choir here. I practice it all I can too. So alright, well, speaking of North Korea, I'm just going to do this talk on these areas. I'll be doing a few things here. There's a couple of them from Anti-War. There's one from antiwar.com, and it came out yesterday by Mel Gurtov. Says he'll deal with North Korean missiles. As it reads here, small powers often have leverage well above their size and capabilities. North Korea is the example par excellence today. As a primitive economy by all usual standards, not reliable trade or security partners, and depends on the outside world for essentials such as fuel and food. Yet, by virtue of nuclear weapons and long-range missiles, Pyongyang has the ability to cause consternation among the great powers. That needn't be the case. Sure, 6 nuclear weapons tests and frequent tests of intermediate and intercontinental range missiles, along with threats and incinerate All enemies can be joined, but no one knows better than the North Korean military what use of those weapons would mean for the country: annihilation. They had been living with far more powerful U.S. and Allied forces ringing their country for more than half a century. Self and national preservation are foremost among the aims of North Korean leaders. Thus, they frequently bluster and issue messages of doom and occasionally attack specific South Korean targets, but they are not so suicidal as to use weapons of mass destruction or fire a missile that would hit U.S. or Allied territory. The real purpose of North Korea's two recent missiles tests over Japan is to cause a rupture in relations among the U.S., China, Japan, and South Korea. Rather than attack Japan, which will galvanize the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty, these missiles provoke debate in Japan about U.S. reliability, Japan's constitutional limits on taking defense or offensive actions against a threat, and choices of weapon systems, including everything from missile defense to nuclear weapons. All these issues have implications for Japan's relations with South Korea and China, both of which would strongly protest a major military buildup by Japan and undermine trilateral cooperation with North Korea. What is particularly interesting from a human interest point of view about the ongoing debate on how to deal with North Korea's missiles is that only one of the major players, namely China, has focused on a diplomatic resolution, while others are concerned with weapons options. South Korea's new president has made an about-face and fully deployed the U.S. THAAD anti-missile system amidst talk about significantly upgrading the destructive power of its conventional bombs. Japan is apparently considering investing more in the missile defense, acquiring cruise missiles, and Washington is trumpeting U.S. weapon sales to both these countries. China, on the other hand, has proposed a freeze North Korea's suspension of nuclear and missile testing in return for U.S.-South Korea suspension of military exercises that might jumpstart talks with North Korea. So far, China's proposal has no interest in Washington, and so the government awaits a positive response from North Korea to propose for talks on resuming family reunions and other kinds of contact. But in Pyongyang, only Washington's behavior counts. North Koreans take U.S. seriously as a threat. Negotiating depends to an end to the hostile policy of the U.S., a position North Korea has held since Kim Jong-il's time and has restated at least 3 times this summer. We have to ask why that view gets no attention from the Western media, and why U.S. officials consistently and wrongly assert that North Korea has no interest in negotiations. The UN Security Council resolution on sanctions includes a call to resume the 6-party talks on the nuclear issue. It is long past time to craft a diplomatic initiative that is sensitive to North Korea's security concerns and will test its interest in talking. Interesting viewpoint there. There have been talks about North Korea want to do these peace talks with the United States to reconcile the differences, because it's like I said, it's been going on for a very long time, even way before I was born. Okay, so just to give you guys an example, you have to start using common sense. And of course, self and national preservation is understandable. What would happen if you have North Koreans, Russian, Chinese going near our waters, close to 12 miles, a little over 12 miles? Will that be okay? No. A lot of folks will be like, what the hell is going on? They'll be ready to go. People would say, hey, this is a threat. Something to really think about. But they want you to believe it's okay for the United States and your tax dollars to go roaming around their turf or close to their waters. They think that's called exceptional. They think it's exceptional. That's what you have to really examine. And the imperialism is just another sham, continue the status quo, and you got the people in government are bending, the United States government are still bending over for the IMC, which is the military-industrial complex. Learn from the past, my friends, is today's greatest teacher. Well, just try to make it's time to say, hey, let the people in the Korea, a lot of good folks in North Korea as well, are hurt because they lost out of touch with their families right across the 38th parallel, I think it is, but right across the border, and don't like it either. They want to be with the family. It's been going on for a very long time, but you don't really hear about it. So that's speaking of that. That's what South Korea has done by Jason Ditz by the same ATWord.com. Came out yesterday as well. South Korea unexpectedly approves aid to North in a move no one expected, in which puts them squarely at odds with the U.S. South Korea today announced a provision of a new $8 million aid package for neighbor North Korea. The provision of humanitarian aid is directly in the contrast with U.S. calls for more pressure. South Korea's Unification Ministry says that there is no risk of the aid being diverted to military use and will not include any cash payments. Rather, the aid is to wholly be in form of food and medicine for children and pregnant women. This is particularly timely as North Korean Ambassador Han Tae-sung was complaining to the UN Committee on the Rights of a Child on Wednesday that the mounting UN-imposed sanctions are endangering local children and forcing cuts in both health and education for them. UN sanctions are predominantly hitting children is hardly a shock, as is generally the case with major sanctions against any country. South Korea is mitigating the worst of its harm risk, leading to a U.S. backlash, as the U.S. South Korea have been on different pages on North Korea as to whether they continue to escalate tensions or try diplomacy. Like I said, hopefully this will benefit the Korean people, but remember, it's government. So you have to always gotta keep an eye on that too. And like I said before, I'm not lovey-dovey with Kim Jong-un and all these crackpots in the governmental world. On a humanitarian purpose, South Korea is doing things right. But with the folks in North Korea, the government will they follow through and make sure their children and their brothers and sisters get this, not just the governmental entities. That's one of the areas you have to see too. It is a good call. South Korea want to be both diplomatic to their neighbors up north. No arguments there. We just got to make sure it will be directly for the beautiful folks up to the neighbors up north. Action speaks louder than words. But you know what? It's a good risk. But I have to give South Korea credit. But they still need to be vigilant, regardless, on a governmental perspective. All right, this is an interesting thing that happened here in the free press. There's a report that t-mobile-sprintmerger will destroy wireless competition, kill jobs, and harm local families. Reuters reported on Friday that T-Mobile and Sprint are close to agreeing to merger terms, with the final deal expected as early as October. If the merger, if approved, will join the third and fourth largest U.S. wireless companies, which would together serve more than 130 million subscribers. Both companies have previously explored merging and touted the alleged benefits from their proposed consolidation. However, it is the government's projection of such mergers that has produced the most considerable benefits. The number of subscribers to both companies has grown in recent years following the introduction of service plans priced well below of those market leaders, AT&T and Verizon, as well as aggressive deployment of advanced 4G LTE services. T-Mobile resurgence in particular is driven by infusion of cash inspection following the SEC's rejection of the AT&T T-Mobile merger in 2011. Sprint, too, has made a concerted effort to improve its network to compete on price. following the Obama FCC reportedly signaling in 2013 that it would reject any deals that reduce the number of nationwide wireless carriers from 4 to 3. Free Press Policy Director Matt Wood made the following statement: "No one but Trump's pals on Wall Street wants to see this competition killing, investment killing, and killing merger. There's no rational justification for T-Mobile to take over Sprint and remove yet another consumer choice from the marketplace. It's motivated by pure greed and the desire to reach deeper into people's wallets." What is obvious about the wireless market is that customers benefit most when the government has the wisdom to block such mergers. Competition driven by small carriers is finally starting to pay off for customers, but this merger would halt at that. As separate entities, T-Mobile and Sprint have exerted important competitive pressures on the wireless market, pushing each other and AT&T and Verizon to do things they otherwise wouldn't, like once again offering uncapped data plans and dropping burdensome contract requirements. The competition between T-Mobile and Sprint is particularly important for lower income families who favor these carriers over AT&T and Verizon. Many people in these households rely on mobile as their only internet connection. If T-Mobile and Sprint merge, prices will spike and the digital divide will widen. The legal standard for improving giant mergers like this is not whether Wall Street likes it. Communication mergers must enhance competition and serve the public interest. This deal would just do the opposite. It would destroy competition and harm the public in numerous and irreversible ways. So unless Ajit Pai wants his tenure at the FCC to go down as the worst for consumers in the agency's 83-year history, the chairman should speak out and show us he was willing to do more than rubber stamp any harmful deal that crosses his desk. Well, you gotta look at all those areas. And here's another thing too. In this, there's other phone services out there that's coming out, and they do these little contractual things. They have these conditions, and they're gonna bring down the prices. They can bring down the prices too. So expect companies to intertwine with other cellular towers, and that will help competition. It's like Cricket and a few others. Just to give you examples. Like Virgin Mobile is part of the Sprint network, so they got all these subsidiaries. They're going to have one soon. You're going to have some independent ones. Great thing to develop. I guarantee you this: it's be a lot more than what it is. And I'll tell you, and I'll say one more thing to my friends. There's other areas you can talk to people without paying a dime. So you have to look at that as well. Something to look for. So, okay, well, like I said, let's see what we have to wait and see. I was curious about how the investors will look at this too. All right. This one came out yesterday too. From the 10th Amendment Center. It's entitled Charlottesville. Blame the Incorporation Doctrine. It's by Mike Maher. As it reads here, it's gonna be for a little while, right? Yeah, it'll be a little while here. Won't be too bad. But as it reads here, there was plenty of blame and finger pointing in the aftermath of the Charlottesville protest. One woman died, at least 33 people suffered injuries where right-wing and left-wing groups clashed during the Unite the Right rally. 2 state troopers also died when their helicopter crashed during the police response to the melee. Analysts have focused on white nationalist groups. Antifa police response to city officials, but one major player who had a hand in the way events unfolded has largely flown under the radar: the federal government, specifically U.S. District Judge Glenn Conrad. Conrad issued the injunction overruling the city's decision to move the rally from Emancipation Park to McIntyre Park. The city cited safety and security concerns and made a decision to grant a permit for the event, only organizing the location to the larger outside of downtown. City Manager Maurice Jones read a prepared statement on the Monday before the rally. Based on the information provided to me by law enforcement officials, the city has decided to approve Mr. Kessler's application for a permit to hold a demonstration on the day at the time requested, provided that he use McIntyre Park rather than Emancipation Park for the demonstration. There is no doubt that Mr. Kessler has a First Amendment right to hold a demonstration to express his views, nor is there any doubt that we as a city have an obligation to protect these rights. The people who seek to exercise them in the broader community in which they do, we have determined that we cannot do all these things effectively if the demonstration is held in Emancipation Park. Rutherford Institute and the ACLU filed an injunction in federal court, arguing the city's decision to move the rally violates the United Right organizer Jason Kessler's first free speech rights. Conrad agreed, granting the injunction effectively nullifying the will of the local officials, he wrote. Under the First Amendment made applicable to the states through the 14th Amendment, a municipal government has no power to restrict expression because of its message, its idea, its subject matter, or its content. Police Department of Chicago versus Mosley, 1972. Content-based restrictions, those that target free speech on its content, are presumptively unconstitutional and may be justified only if the government proves that they are narrowly tailored to serve compelling state's interests. Reed versus Town of Gilbert, 2015. We can't really blame the judge. He was merely following the Incorporation Doctrine, a dubious legal principle that applies the First Amendment and other provisions of the Bill of Rights to the states. As ratified, the First Amendment was never intended to bind the actions of state governments. That is clear in the wording of the amendment, Congress shall make no law. In fact, none of the first 10 amendments were meant to apply to state governments. Their actions no founding era evidence that Congress or the state ratifiers intended for the protections included in the Bill of Rights to bind the states. In fact, doing so would essentially create a federal veto over state laws, a massive expansion of central government authority. The exact opposition is stated purpose, including a Bill of Rights in the Constitution. The preamble makes the purpose of the Bill of Rights very clear. The conventions of a number of states having a time of their adoption, the construction express a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its power, that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added, and as extending the ground of public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent ends of this institution. So this is really clear. He's saying that based on this, McCarley is saying it has actually stepped on state jurisdiction. So that's one thing folks got to really look at. But I am going to continue on in a moment. So, and like it says right here, the word "it powers" clearly refers back to the Constitution. The Bill of Rights was intended to prevent misconstruction or abuse of the Constitution's powers as exercised through the government. The general government created by the document. Notice the word "government" is not a plural. The Bill of Rights makes no intention of state governments. In fact, state ratifying conventions have no intention of restricting the state's own powers. We already had state constitutions do that job. And I'm glad he brought that up because I have talked about this as well. And I think that's pretty damn cool, and I say that out of respect because I will get to that in a moment. So, yeah, definitely something to really look at. So, definitely check that out. One more thing here. I'm just trying to do a couple of stuff. I'll be back for a moment. So, as it reads here, so how did the federal courts ending up applying the First Amendment to stop the action of a local city government in Virginia through the 14th Amendment and the Incorporation Doctrine, a legal principle that holds the amendment applies the Bill of Rights to the states as well as the federal government. It wasn't until 1925, so 57 years after ratification, that the Supreme Court fully formulated the concept of incorporation in the 14th Amendment through due process clause. As late as 1922, the Supreme Court held that the Constitution imposes upon the states no obligation to confer upon those within their jurisdiction the right of free speech. That then magically, in the 1925 case, Gitlow versus New York, the Supreme Court assumed that the freedom of speech and the press, which are protected by the First Amendment from abridged by Congress, are among the fundamental personal rights and liberties protected due process clause of the 14th Amendment from impairment by the states. Voila, Incorporation was born. Incorporation remains a contentious legal issue today. The best scholarship on the original intent of the 14th Amendment doesn't support doctrine, although some legal scholars make reasonable arguments for it. But setting aside the legal debate, we vividly saw the problem with the federal intervention in a local issue in the way Charlottesville played out. A federal judge simply overruled elected representatives who were in the best position to make decisions about a local matter. They believe public safety warranted moving Kessler's rally to another location, and it appears they tried to balance this free speech rights with their concerns about violence. As it turns out, they were clearly corrected in their assessment. Had the federal judge not intervened and insisted the rally must go on in Emancipation Park, perhaps 3 lives would not have been lost. Some would argue that federal protection state tramples on our rights. A mechanism exists to protect free speech and the assembly at the state level. The Virginia Constitution has the Bill of Rights. Article 1, Section 12 addresses free speech. That the freedom of speech and of the press are among the great bulwarks of liberty and can never be restrained except by despotic governments. That any citizen may speak freely, write and publish his sentiments on all subjects, be responsible for the abuse of that right. That the General Assembly shall not pass any law abridging the freedom of speech or the press, nor the right of the people to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. And I'm going to add that to the link too on Article 1, Section 12 of the Article 1 of the Virginia Constitution. You can see it for yourselves. Kessler could have sued in state court. Perhaps the outcome would have been the same, or maybe the state judge would have deferred to the wisdom of local elected officials and allowed the state to move the rally. Maybe a state judge would have found moving the speech to a new location that substantially burdening Kessler's rights when balanced with the public safety hazard or something else. We'll never know. But at this point, as local judges and officials are generally better equipped to evaluate local situations and apply the law in a way that represents the will of that particular political society than a politically appointed federal lawyer beholding legal presence that often evolves in vastly different political and cultural settings. The problem with the corporation is that it centralizes power and authorities in federal court and vests federal judges with power they were never intended to wield. During the drafting of the Constitution, James Madison suggested a federal veto on state laws. The idea was soundly rejected. The founding generation did not want the federal government controlling things at the local level. The Incorporation Doctrine effectively gives the federal government that kind of veto power over not only state but even local decision making. It has happened a lot. Even in the city of Fort Lauderdale, just to give you guys an example. The end result of the incorporated doctrine is monopolization of the government at the federal level. This seldom works out well. One-size-fits-all solutions doesn't exist. Local police should make decisions on local people should make decisions on local issues. Centralization of power seldom ends as well, as Charlottesville vividly illustrates in retrospect. That's a good thesis. Mr. Meharry. And that's why I'm not going to argue about that too, because a lot of my friends, I always try to use the state constitution in those areas as well, because you have to look at everything across the board. And I know too about they have an oath of office in Virginia, Article 2, Section 7. So, and it's interesting when I got here about consent to use public property. It says, no street. You know what? I like what it says here. Oh, consent to use public property. That's like totally different from local government. That's from local government, so I'm going to ignore that. For sure, I'm going to ignore that. But Article 7, local governments, does a lot of stuff on here too. Powers, organizations, county, city officers. I'm going to put that in. Yeah, I'm going to put that in there. Just to make it verifiable. But Section 4 tells you how it's going to be, how everything's going to be done here, and the powers. So that's going to add Article 7 of their state constitution. Because, hey, you guys have the right to know everything here, so you just get a bigger picture. But the fact is, always try to focus on your state constitution if you live in the United States. It's very effective, and overall, sometimes the federal government should never encroach on states' jurisdiction. James Madison, Federalist Papers 46, talks about that. All right, my friends, that is it. I want to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you say something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please address the correspondence with decorum. You hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, scene.lifeminds.com, futurenet.club, or patreon.com/LuckyLuck3. Going to be a patron, donor, and all that. It'd be awesome. In addition, Gab, G-A-B, Gab.ai. So that's another alternative to Twitter. You know, a lot of stuff is happening with censorship and these big, mega social media groups. Just got to be vigilant. All right, my friends, that's all for now. Once again, thank you for your time. Let's always remember that the might act resistance helps to some we can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. May your guardian spirits be with you.